A metal freight elevator ascends through pitch blackness, its gears grinding violently, while industrial alarms blare. Inside, a terrified teenage boy awakens with complete amnesia, unable to remember his own name or where he came from. Cold light pierces the darkness as the metal doors above open. A group of teenage boys peers down into the crate, shouting cryptic terminology like fresh meat and greenie. Strong hands drag the disoriented newcomer out into a massive, open grassy clearing surrounded on all four sides by gargantuan, ivy-covered stone walls towering hundreds of feet into the sky. Albie, the stern yet grounded leader of the community, helps the boy to his feet, welcoming him to the Glade, a self-sustaining compound where decades of boys have built a functioning society from scratch while trapped inside an inescapable concrete perimeter. Albie takes the newcomer on a guided tour of the Glade, introducing him to Chuck, a younger boy who becomes his first friend, and Newt, the pragmatic second-in-command. The boy learns the fundamental laws that keep their society alive. Everyone does their share, no Glader ever hurts another, and above all, no one ever steps foot outside the Glade except for the runners. Suddenly, a low, mechanical moan reverberates across the valley. The boy watches in awe as massive stone doors built into the perimeter walls begin to slide shut, locking the Glade off from the outside world for the night. Newt explains that beyond the walls lies an ever-shifting labyrinth filled with lethal, biomechanical creatures known as Grievers. Anyone caught inside the maze after dark dies. That night, around a roaring bonfire, the newcomer gets into a wrestling match with Gally, the Glade's enforcer. After taking a hard blow to the head, the sudden rush of adrenaline unlocks a single buried memory. His name is Thomas. The next morning, Thomas is assigned to work with Miho, the lead runner who maps the maze daily, and Frypan, the cook. Thomas's relentless curiosity draws him toward the open doors, where he watches the runners dash out into the winding stone corridors before dawn. While working in the woods nearby, Thomas is violently ambushed by Ben, a runner who has been stung by a Griever. Ben's skin is discolored, his veins bulging with dark infection as he rages with psychotic madness, a terrifying state known as the changing. Ben accuses Thomas of being responsible for their imprisonment before being tackled by the other boys. Because Ben broke the fundamental rule of violence and can no longer be cured without the missing antidote, the Gladers assemble at dusk for a grim ritual. Armed with long wooden poles, the boys force the screaming, delirious Ben backward through the main gate into the maze just as the heavy stone doors slam shut for the night, condemning him to the Grievers. The tragic mood deepens the following day when the industrial box unexpectedly returns weeks ahead of its monthly schedule. Inside lies a young woman, the first girl ever sent to the Glade. She is unconscious, holding a crumpled note in her hand that reads, "She's the last one. Ever." Before slipping back into a coma, she mutters Thomas's name. Determined to understand what is happening, Albie and Miho venture deep into the maze to retrace Ben's steps. As dusk approaches, the Gladers gather at the gate, anxiously waiting for their return. Right before the doors begin to close, Miho emerges from the shadows, dragging an unconscious Albie, who has been stung by a Griever. The doors begin their relentless shut sequence. Realizing Miho and Albie won't clear the gap in time, Thomas makes a split-second decision and dives between the closing doors into the maze just as they seal shut. Trapped after dark, Miho warns Thomas that they are already dead, but Thomas refuses to give up. He uses thick ivy vines to hoist Albie's body high up onto a stone wall to hide him. Suddenly, a Griever appears, a horrifying hybrid of a giant arachnid and metallic machinery. Thomas draws the creature away, leading it through narrow, shifting corridors until he trickles it into a closing wall mechanism, crushing the monster to death. Against all historical odds, dawn arrives and the Glade doors open to reveal Thomas, Miho, and a surviving Albie. The Glade erupts into shock and celebration. While Gally demands that Thomas be punished for breaking the rule against entering the maze, Newt overrules him, appointing Thomas as the official runner for his bravery. Thomas, Miho, and a small team head back into the maze to inspect the crushed Griever's corpse. Deep inside its biological mechanical flesh, Thomas extracts a glowing electronic cylinder marked with the number 7 and the acronym WCKD. Back at the Glade, the girl awakens from her coma in a panic, calling herself Teresa. She recognizes Thomas, revealing that they both possess vague, fragmented memories of working together for the organization that created the Glade. Teresa reveals she was sent up with 2 syringes filled with a mystery blue serum. Thomas and Newt decide to inject one into the dying Albie. Meanwhile, Miho leads Thomas into a hidden hut in the woods to show him a detailed 3D scale model of the entire maze, built over 3 years of mapping. Miho reveals that the maze runs on a cyclical sequence of opening sections, 1 through 8, but no exit has ever been found. Thomas realizes that the cylinder numbered 7 taken from the Griever corresponds to Section 7 of the maze. Armed with the cylinder, Thomas and Miho run deep into Section 7, where the device acts as a keycard, opening a high-tech subterranean corridor that leads to an electronic door marked exit. However, a red security scanner recognizes them and triggers a lockdown, forcing them to flee back to the Glade before the walls trap them forever. When Thomas and Miho return, they discover that the serum has restored Albie's memories, but the truth leaves him horrified. He remembers the world outside the Glade is devastated by fire and disease. Worse still, night falls, but the massive stone doors of the Glade fail to close. Soon, doors on all four sides of the perimeter slide open simultaneously. Screams echo across the Glade as dozens of Grievers pour into the camp from all directions, tearing down huts and dragging boys off into the dark. Albie sacrifices himself to save Chuck before being taken by a Griever. The surviving Gladers barricade themselves inside the council hut until sunrise, leaving the camp completely destroyed and half their community dead. In the chaotic aftermath, Gally takes control of the survivors, blaming Thomas for the destruction and preparing to offer him and Teresa as sacrifices to the Grievers to restore balance. Realizing he needs full access to his forgotten past to save everyone, Thomas grabs a severed Griever stinger and stabs himself in the leg. As the blue serum is administered to save him, Thomas falls into a deep trance-like state, recovering his lost memories. He remembers working as a scientist for WCKD, watching test subjects being loaded into the box, and realizing that he and Teresa were testing the Gladers' brain patterns under extreme stress. Upon waking, Thomas confesses his past to the group, but his honesty inspires Newt, Miho, Chuck, and a faction of Gladers to side with him. They overpower Gally's loyalists at the execution pole and march into the open maze toward the Section 7 escape hatch. Thomas leads his team into the narrow Griever hole in Section 7. A brutal, bloody battle erupts as the Gladers use spears and shields to hold back a swarm of Grievers, while Teresa and Chuck punch in an 8-digit sequence corresponding to the order the maze sections open. The heavy steel door unlocks, deactivating the Grievers instantly. The survivors walk through dark industrial corridors until they step into a high-tech laboratory filled with dead scientists and destroyed computers. A video recording automatically plays, featuring Dr. Ava Page. She explains that a solar flare devastated Earth, unleashing a deadly neurological virus known as the flare. The Gladers were engineered with natural immunity, and their neurological reactions inside the maze were being monitored to engineer a cure. As the video ends, crazed Gally appears in the room, stung and wielding a gun. He fires at Thomas, but Chuck jumps in front of the bullet, saving Thomas's life at the cost of his own. Gally is immediately speared by Miho. Armed tactical soldiers burst into the lab, ushering the traumatized survivors out onto a military helicopter. As they lift off, Thomas looks down to see the colossal, burning ruins of the maze surrounded by a vast desert wasteland, realizing their struggle for survival has only just begun.